She tries to escape her fate by kissing a beggar on her wedding day, only to discover too late that he is the powerful Alpha King. An original romance by Maggie Reed. Prologue. They say marriages are made in heaven. Maybe for most she-wolves that's true. The flowers, the dream dress, the promise of eternal love. But for Elena, eldest daughter of Alpha Richard, marriage wasn't about love. It was about duty, about alliances between territories, about being the perfect bargaining chip in a negotiation she never chose. 24 years living in the shadow of expectations, always the obedient daughter, always the pawn on her father's chessboard. And now, dressed in white like a sacrificial virgin, she was about to seal her fate with a man who wasn't her mate. A man whose touch awakened nothing but cold emptiness. Elena believed this was what she deserved. A life without flame. A future without choice. Because she-wolves like her, those raised to be seen, never heard, had no right to dream of more. But fate had other plans. That night, when she fled through the window in her torn dress and bare feet, when she ran blind through the forest, guided only by desperation, Elena had no idea she was running straight into the arms of the most dangerous wolf in the northern lands. She didn't know that a single unthinkable kiss, requested in a moment of madness under the full moon, would invoke an ancient law forgotten for centuries. And she certainly didn't know that the golden-eyed beggar hidden in the clearing was no beggar at all. He was Kael, the Alpha King who had been waiting for her all along, and he had no intention whatsoever of letting her go. Chapter 1. The wedding dress weighed like lead on Elena's shoulders. She stood before the mirror in the bridal chamber, but couldn't recognize herself. The white fabric swallowed her slender figure. The lace seemed like claws tightening around her throat. Outside, she heard the growing murmur of the pack gathered in the ceremonial hall. Hundreds of wolves, all waiting to witness the arranged marriage of Alpha Richard's eldest daughter. The marriage that would seal the alliance between two territories. The marriage that would transform her into the Luna of a man she barely knew. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the veil. Her skin burned where, weeks ago, David had touched her. David, the son of Alpha Marcus, her future husband, a proper man, educated, with impeccable posture, a man who looked at her as if she were a porcelain piece too fragile to truly touch, a man who was not her mate. She knew this with absolute certainty. There was no spark when he touched her, no shiver running down her spine, no warmth spreading beneath her skin, just nothing. A cold void that made her feel even more alone. It's almost time. Her mother's voice invaded the room, followed by the creak of the door. The ceremony begins in 10 minutes. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Elena forced a smile. Thank you, Mom. But when she looked at the mirror again, she saw only a prisoner dressed in white. Her mother left, leaving her alone once more. The room seemed smaller by the second, the walls closing in on her. Elena brought her hand to her chest, feeling her heart beat erratically, her breathing becoming increasingly difficult. She couldn't do this. She couldn't walk to that altar, speak the vows, accept the mark of a man she didn't love, not when every cell in her body screamed that something was wrong, that this wasn't her destiny. Her eyes found the window. The impulse came from somewhere deep and primitive, an ancestral voice that whispered, "Run." Without thinking, Elena grabbed the hem of the dress and ran to the window, pushing it hard. The cold night air invaded the room, bringing the scent of pine trees and wet earth. Freedom. She didn't look back. She jumped. The garden below cushioned her fall. Elena got up quickly, ignoring the pain in her ankle, and ran. The dress tore in the bushes. The veil was lost among the flowers. She ran blind, guided only by desperation, by the tears that blurred her vision. She crossed the garden, then the woods that surrounded the property. Branches scratched her bare arms, stones cut her bare feet. It didn't matter. All that mattered was putting distance between her and that cursed ceremony. When she finally stopped, breathless, she found herself in an unknown clearing. The full moon hung above her, enormous and accusing, illuminating the figure of a man sitting on the ground, leaning against a tree. Elena froze. He was a beggar, perhaps. dark and worn clothes, long disheveled hair falling over his face. But there was something about him, something in the way his shoulders filled the old leather jacket, in the absolute stillness of his body. Elena should run, should scream. Instead, she took a step forward. "You," she said, her voice coming out choked. "Can you help me?" The man slowly lifted his head, and Elena saw his eyes, golden, shining like molten metal under the moonlight, eyes that pierced her, that seemed to see through her, every fear, every wound, every secret desire. Something inside her broke. "I need you." The words came out before she could stop them. "I need you to do something for me. Something unthinkable." The man stood up with a fluid grace that belied his shabby clothes. He was tall, very tall, forcing Elena to lift her chin to find his eyes again. "What do you want?" His voice was deep, hoarse, loaded with something dangerous. Elena took a breath. She knew what she was about to ask was madness, but an old part of herself, the one that whispered forgotten secrets, said there was power in kisses, power in first times, power in choices made under the full moon. "I want you to kiss me," she said, each word coming out firm despite the tremor in her hands. "Now, before they find me, before it's too late." The man stood motionless for a long moment. Then he smiled. And when he smiled, Elena saw his fangs. "You don't know what you're asking, little she-wolf," he murmured, taking a step toward her. His scent enveloped her, pine trees, night mist, and something deeper, wilder. Something that made her inner wolf awaken for the first time in years, arching, begging. "I know exactly what I'm asking," Elena lied, because she didn't know. She didn't know anything, except that she needed this more than she needed to breathe. The man extended his hand, his fingers touching her chin, tilting her face upward. "So be it," he said, and kissed her. The world exploded. Fire ran through Elena's veins, burning everything in its path. Her knees weakened, but strong hands held her, pressing her against a hard, hot body. The kiss was hunger and devotion, claim and surrender, all at once. And then she felt it, the mark, burning on her neck where there should be only skin. She pulled away abruptly, bringing her hand to the spot. Her fingers found heated skin, but no visible wound. Still, it burned. What did you do?" she whispered, horror growing in her chest. The man took a step back, and under the moonlight, Elena finally saw him truly. The strong face with a marked jawline, the broad shoulders that emanated power, and those golden eyes that now shone with something between triumph and something darker. "I accepted your request," he said simply. "You asked me for a kiss. I gave it. But there was something you didn't know, little runaway she-wolf." Elena backed away, her heart racing. "What?" He smiled again, and this time there was nothing gentle in the expression. "The law of the first kiss, ancient, forgotten by most, but still valid. When a she-wolf kisses another wolf on the day designated for her wedding, under the full moon, she seals a bond older than any arrangement. A bond that cannot be broken." Elena's blood froze. "No." "Yes," he confirmed, taking a step forward for each one she took back. "You chose me. Your wolf chose mine. And now, little hurricane in a torn dress, you are mine." Who are you?" The words barely came out. He tilted his head, those golden eyes burning her alive. "I am Kael, the Alpha King of the North. And you, my stubborn and reckless mate, have just fled from an arranged marriage, straight into the arms of the most dangerous wolf of these lands." Elena felt her legs give way, but before she could fall, strong arms caught her. And the last thing she saw before darkness took her were those golden eyes, watching her like a predator who had finally captured his prey. Chapter 2. Elena woke to the smell of pine trees and wood smoke. For a moment, confused, she thought she was back in her room. But then memory returned in sharp fragments. The wedding dress, the escape, the clearing, the beggar who was no beggar. Kael, the Alpha King of the North. She sat up abruptly, her heart racing. She was in a bed, not hers, but a huge bed covered with animal furs and dark sheets. The room around her was Spartan but comfortable. Wooden walls, a crackling fireplace, tall windows that let in the dim light of dawn. Where was she? Her hands flew to her neck, to the place where the mark had burned. The skin was smooth, but when her fingers touched it, a wave of heat ran through her entire body, so intense she gasped. "It's real," a voice said from the corner of the room. Elena spun her head so fast she felt a painful pull. Kael was sitting in an armchair near the window, watching her with those impossible eyes. In daylight, he was even more impressive. Dark hair fell to his shoulders, framing a face of marked and masculine features. He had changed the shabby clothes for dark pants and a simple shirt that highlighted the muscles of his arms and chest. "What's real?" she managed to ask, her voice coming out hoarse. "The mark," he replied, standing with that predatory grace that made Elena's inner wolf stir restlessly. "The law of the first kiss isn't just tradition, it's ancient magic. When you kissed me, you sealed a mate bond between us. A true bond." Elena shook her head, backing away until she hit the headboard. "This can't be real. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to escape." "And you did," Kael said, stopping at the foot of the bed. His eyes never left hers. "You ran straight to me, as if fate itself had guided your steps." "Where am I?" she demanded, trying to regain some control over the situation. "My territory. The northern fortress, to be specific. We're 3 days' travel from your old pack." 3 days. Panic tightened Elena's chest. "They'll look for me. My father, Alpha Marcus, David. They already came," Kael interrupted calmly. "Last night, while you slept, I sent them away." Elena blinked. "You... what?" "I told your father and Alpha Marcus that you're under my protection now. That the law of the first kiss has been invoked, and that any attempt to break the bond would be a declaration of war against the North." The room spun. "You can't. I didn't authorize." "You authorized when you kissed me," Kael said, his voice lowering, becoming deeper. He leaned slightly forward, his hands resting on the foot of the bed. "You may not have understood the consequences, but your instinct knew. Your wolf knew. Why else would you have run to me?" "I didn't run to you," Elena shot back, anger beginning to replace fear. "I ran from a wedding I didn't want. You were just... there." Something dangerous flashed in Kael's eyes. "I wasn't there by chance, Elena. I was waiting for you." The air left her lungs. "How do you know my name?" A slow smile curved his lips. "I know a lot about you. The eldest daughter of Alpha Richard, 24 years old. Strong, but never allowed to fight. Intelligent, but always kept on the margins of pack decisions. A she-wolf trapped in a golden cage, desperate to be free." Each word was an accurate arrow. Elena felt her throat tighten. "How do you—" "Because I watched you," Kael said simply. "For months. Waiting for the right moment." Horror returned, icy and visceral. "You stalked me?" "I met my mate," he corrected, straightening up. "And I waited until she needed me. Until she was ready to choose her own destiny, even without knowing she was choosing me." Elena didn't know whether to scream or cry. "You manipulated everything. You knew I would run. Knew about the law. Knew that I would do something stupid." "I knew you were brave enough to seek your freedom," Kael interrupted, his voice softening for the first time. "And yes, I hoped your instinct would guide you to me. But you had a choice, Elena. You could have run in the other direction, could have screamed for help, could have refused the kiss. But I didn't know." "Your wolf knew," he repeated, and there was absolute certainty in his words. "Instincts don't lie. Your wolf recognized mine. She wanted me." "And you, underneath all this fear and anger, want me too." Elena opened her mouth to deny, but no words came out. Because, gods help her, she could feel it. The pull, the attraction, something deep and primitive that pulled her toward him, that made her skin tingle where he had touched her, that turned her breathing into an accelerated rhythm just from being near him. "I won't stay here as your prisoner," she said finally, raising her chin. Kael smiled. Not that dangerous smile from before, but something softer, almost amused. "You're not my prisoner, Elena. You're my mate, my Luna. And when you're ready to accept that, I'll be waiting." He turned to leave. "Wait," Elena called him before she could stop herself. What happens now?" Kael looked over his shoulder, those golden eyes capturing hers. "Now? Now you rest, eat, explore your new home. And when you're ready," he paused, "we'll talk about the future, about what it means to be the mate of the Alpha King of the North." And then he left, closing the door softly behind him. Elena was left alone, her heart pounding, the mark on her neck pulsing with a life of its own. And for the first time since she had awakened, she allowed herself to ask the question she most feared. What if he was right? What if her wolf really wanted him? What if she wanted him too? Chapter 3. Elena spent the first hour after Kael's departure exploring the room. Not because she wanted to, but because she needed some distraction before going insane. The mark on her neck pulsed constantly, a physical reminder of the bond she had, inadvertently or not, created. Each pulse sent waves of heat through her body, making her remember those golden eyes, that deep voice. "Stop it," she ordered herself. She found clothes in a dresser, soft pants, cotton blouses, even some more elaborate pieces of leather and wool. Everything in the right size, as if someone had prepared this specifically for her. Because he planned this, the bitter voice in her mind whispered. He planned everything. Elena changed quickly, abandoning the remains of the wedding dress in a corner. Wearing pants for the first time in years, her father had always insisted that ladies wear dresses, was strangely liberating. When she finished, a gentle knock on the door made her freeze. "Come in," she said, expecting to see Kael. Instead, a woman entered. She was young, perhaps a few years older than Elena, with brown hair tied in a ponytail and hazel eyes that assessed her with curiosity. "Good morning," the woman said, smiling. "I'm Sarah. The Kael, asked me to see if you needed anything." Elena blinked, caught off guard by the informality. "You call him Kael?" Sarah laughed. "Of course. He doesn't like formalities among the pack. Says titles are for strangers and that we're family here." The word family echoed strangely in Elena. In her old pack, hierarchies were everything. No one would dare call her father by his name. "I don't need anything," Elena responded hesitantly. "Are you sure? I brought breakfast." Sarah indicated a tray she had left on a small table near the door. The aroma of fresh bread and coffee made Elena's stomach growl traitorously. Sarah smiled more broadly. "I'll take that as a yes. Come on, eat. You must be starving. Kael said you slept almost 16 hours. 16 hours? Elena approached the table, still suspicious, but hunger won over caution. She sat and began to eat, while Sarah settled into the armchair that Kael had occupied earlier. "You must have a lot of questions," Sarah said after a moment. "A few," Elena admitted, chewing a piece of bread with jam. It was delicious, and that only annoyed her more. How could she be enjoying the food when her entire life had been turned upside down? "You can ask. I don't bite." Sarah winked. "Well, not much." Despite everything, Elena almost smiled. "All right. What is the law of the first kiss? Why have I never heard of it?" Sarah's expression became more serious. "Because most modern packs forgot it, or chose to forget. It's an ancient law, from when mate bonds were sacred and destiny was respected above political arrangements. And how exactly does it work? When a she-wolf kisses another wolf on her wedding day, under the full moon, the law is invoked. The kiss acts as a ritual, asking fate to reveal the true mate. If the kissed wolf is the true companion, a bond forms instantly. If not," Sarah paused. "If not," Elena pressed. "Nothing happens. It's just a kiss." Elena's heart raced. "So that means that Kael is your true mate," Sarah completed gently. "Yes." The mark wouldn't lie. Elena brought her hand to her neck again, feeling that delicious burn. "But I barely know him." The mate bond doesn't care how long you've known each other. It cares what your souls recognize in each other. Sarah leaned forward. I know it must be scary, but Kael, he's a good man, Elena. A good alpha. He won't hurt you. Before Elena could respond, the door opened again. Kael entered, and immediately the air in the room changed. It became denser, charged with electricity. His eyes met Elena's, and that damn mark pulsed so hard she had to hold onto the table. Sarah, Kael said, still looking at Elena. Thank you for taking care of her. Can you leave us, please? Sarah stood immediately. Of course. She winked at Elena before leaving. See you later. The door closed, leaving them alone. Kael crossed the room with that fluid grace, stopping a few steps from her. You ate well. That's good. Don't try to be nice to me, Elena retorted, rising from the chair. That doesn't change anything you did. I know. His voice was calm, without defensiveness. I manipulated circumstances, used your desperation to my advantage, and I won't apologize for it. The brutal honesty caught her off guard. Why not? Because I would spend 1,000 years planning, waiting, manipulating if it meant you would be mine in the end, Kael said. And there was fierce intensity in his eyes. Because from the moment I realized you were my mate, there was nothing more important than bringing you home. Elena took a step back, but he advanced, maintaining the minimal distance between them. You think it was easy watching you prepare to marry another man? Seeing you fake smiles, wear that damn dress, walk toward a prison disguised as marriage? His voice was rough now, hoarse. It was torture. And when you jumped through the window, when you ran as if your life depended on it, he stopped, running a hand through his hair. That's when I knew you were as strong as I suspected, that you were ready to fight for what you deserved, even without knowing what it was. Elena was trembling, but not from fear. Something deeper, more confused. And what do I deserve, according to you? Kael took another step, now so close she could feel the heat radiating from him, could see the lighter spots in his golden eyes. Freedom, he said softly. Respect. A partner who sees you as an equal, not as a trophy. A pack that values you. And love, Elena. You deserve to be loved fiercely, unconditionally. Tears burned in her eyes, but she blinked to push them away. You don't even know me. Not yet, he agreed. But I will, and you'll know me. And when that happens, he raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull back. When she didn't move, his fingers gently touched her face, tracing the line of her jaw. The touch was like fire and ice simultaneously. Elena gasped, her knees almost giving way. When that happens, Kael continued, his voice rougher, you'll realize that what you feel isn't just the bond. It's choice. Your choice. And this time, you'll know exactly what you're choosing. He pulled away then, and Elena almost moaned at the loss of contact. Come, Kael said, extending his hand. Let me show you the territory. Let me show you what it means to be Luna here. Elena looked at the extended hand. She could refuse, could lock herself in the room, fight, scream, but something inside her, maybe her wolf, maybe her own heart tired of fighting against destiny, wanted to accept. Slowly, she placed her hand in his, and when their fingers intertwined, the mark on her neck sang. Chapter 4. The northern fortress was different from everything Elena knew. As Kael guided her through the grounds, she noticed there was no rigid hierarchy of her old pack. Wolves of all ages greeted them warmly, some stopping to chat, others just waving with genuine smiles. And everyone looked at her with curiosity but without judgment. Your pack seems happy, Elena observed as they passed a group of children playing near a stream. Because they are, Kael replied. Happiness doesn't come from control or fear. It comes from purpose, from belonging. Everyone here knows they have value, regardless of rank or strength. They climbed a small hill, and Elena stopped abruptly when the view opened before her. Snow-covered mountains stretched as far as the eye could see, enormous pine trees dotting the white terrain. The sky was incredibly blue, and the air was so clean and fresh it almost hurt to breathe. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's home, Kael said quietly beside her. Elena turned to look at him. The wind tousled his dark hair, the sun illuminated his strong profile, and suddenly, she was taken by the intensity of his presence, by the way he seemed to be part of that wild landscape. "Why did you wait for me?" she asked abruptly. "If you knew I was your mate, why didn't you come before? Why let my father arrange that marriage?" Kael was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the distant mountains. "Because you weren't ready," he said finally. "I could feel it, even from afar. You were still trapped, fighting against shackles you yourself didn't fully understand. If I had appeared before, asking you to come with me, you would have refused. You would have seen it as another prison, another attempt to control you." He turned to face her. "But when you jumped through that window, when you chose to run even without knowing where you were going, that's when I knew you were ready to make your own choices. And I just made sure to be there when you needed me." Elena processed his words, her chest tight. "That still seems like manipulation." "It is," Kael admitted without hesitation. "But it's manipulation born of desperation, not cruelty. Because without you, Elena," his voice failed. "Without you, this place, this title, all of it means nothing." Something broke inside her chest. Seeing that powerful man admit vulnerability, admit need, was disconcerting. "I'm still angry," she said, but her voice was softer. "I know, and you have every right." Kael extended his hand, and after a moment of hesitation, Elena took it. "But let me spend every day proving you didn't make a mistake. Let me show you that you deserve to be here, that you deserve this." He pointed to the horizon, to the wild and free vastness that stretched before them, and Elena, for the first time, allowed herself to imagine that maybe, just maybe, she could belong to a place like this, belong to him. They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring. Kael introduced her to the elders, a council of 3 wolves who advised him but clearly respected him as leader. He showed her the training fields where wolves of both sexes practiced combat. "Women fight here?" Elena asked, surprised to see several she-wolves wielding weapons. "Of course. Strength isn't determined by gender, but by will and training." Kael watched her carefully. "Do you want to learn?" Elena felt something awaken in her chest. "I always wanted to, but my father—" "Your father isn't here," Kael said firmly. "And here, you have permission to be whoever you want. Warrior, healer, hunter, counselor, whatever your soul asks for." Tears burned in Elena's eyes again. No one had ever offered her choice before. When the sun began to set, tinging the sky orange and pink, Kael took her back to the main hall, an imposing structure of stone and wood that radiated warmth and welcome. "Tonight there will be a dinner," he explained as they entered. "The entire pack gathers to eat together. You don't have to attend if you don't want to, but—" "I want to," Elena interrupted him, surprising herself. Kael smiled, a true smile that completely transformed his face, making him less intimidating and more human. "Then I'll see you there." Hours later, Elena found herself sitting next to Kael at the main table, surrounded by a noisy and cheerful pack. Conversations flowed freely, laughter echoed, children ran between the tables. It was chaotic. It was beautiful. And when Kael, without thinking, placed his hand over hers on the table, intertwining their fingers, Elena didn't pull away. She just squeezed back, and the smile he gave her completely stole her breath. Chapter 5. The following days fell into a strange but not uncomfortable rhythm. Elena woke in the morning to find breakfast waiting, always brought by Sarah or another pack member. Kael appeared shortly after, asking about her plans for the day, offering company but never insisting. It was disconcerting how he seemed to know exactly when she needed space and when she craved presence. On the 3rd morning, Elena woke with sore muscles after her first combat training. Sarah had introduced her to the defense instructor, a fierce she-wolf named Mara who wasn't gentle, but taught techniques that Elena absorbed like a sponge. She was stretching in bed when Kael entered, knocking lightly before opening the door. "May I come in?" he asked, already halfway in. Elena rolled her eyes but nodded affirmatively. You're already inside." He smiled, but it was a tense smile. For the first time since she'd arrived, Elena noticed he seemed nervous. "There's something I need to tell you," Kael said, sitting in the armchair that seemed to be his favorite spot. "About the law of the first kiss, and about what comes next." Elena's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Kael took a deep breath. "The law doesn't just create a mate bond. It establishes a 3-part ritual. The first has already happened, the kiss that bound us. But the other 2 still need to be completed." "What other 2? "The second is the claiming," he explained, his eyes fixed on hers with disturbing intensity. "It's when I mark you physically, with a bite. It makes the bond visible to all other wolves. It's permanent." Elena swallowed hard. "And the third?" Kael hesitated, and for the first time she saw color rise in his cheeks. "The third is the consummation. It's when—" "I understand," Elena interrupted quickly, heat rising to her own face. And if I don't want to do the other 2 parts?" Something painful passed through Kael's eyes. "Then the bond will remain incomplete. You'll always be my mate, but the tie between us will be just partial, weak. And over time what? Over time it will hurt," he admitted quietly. "For both of us. The incomplete bond will pull, will ache, will become unbearable. That's why the law is so powerful. It doesn't just connect souls, it demands completion." Elena got up from the bed, walking to the window. The view of the mountains was reassuring, but her mind was in turmoil. "How long do we have?" she asked without turning around. "Tradition says the 3 rituals must be completed within 1 full moon," Kael replied. "So, approximately 2 weeks." 2 weeks? Elena closed her eyes. Was that enough time? To know this man, decide if she trusted him, allow him to mark her permanently. "And if I refuse?" she asked, turning to face him. "What happens to you?" Kael stood slowly. "That doesn't matter. It matters to me." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Kael sighed, running his hand through his hair, a gesture Elena was beginning to recognize as a sign of frustration or nervousness. "An alpha with an incomplete bond weakens," he admitted reluctantly, "physically and mentally. And if the bond is completely rejected, well, I've never met any alpha who survived it." The air left Elena's lungs. "You're saying if I refuse, you'll die?" "I'm saying you have a choice," Kael responded firmly. "You always have a choice, Elena. And if you decide you can't accept this, that you can't accept me, then so be it. I won't force you into anything." But she could see it. In the way his hands trembled slightly. In the way his jaw was locked. In the way his eyes followed her with a mixture of hope and desperation. He was prepared to die if she refused. The revelation hit her like a punch to the stomach. "Why?" she whispered. "Why put yourself in this position? Why invoke a law that could kill you?" Kael crossed the room in 3 steps, stopping so close to her that Elena had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Because a life without you isn't worth living," he said. And there was absolute truth in his words. "Because the moment I realized you were mine in the deepest and most primitive sense, there was nothing else. No future worth having, no purpose, only you." His hand rose, hesitating near her face. "May I?" Elena nodded, unable to form words. He touched her face with a gentleness that contradicted his fierce appearance, fingers tracing the line of her cheek, then descending to her neck, where the invisible mark burned. "I know it's intense," Kael murmured. "I know it's scary. But this, Elena, this connection between us, is the most real thing I've ever felt. And I'll spend every moment of the next 2 weeks proving it's real for you too." Elena was trembling, but not from fear. The heat of his hand, his scent enveloping her, the intensity of those golden eyes. Everything was dismantling her defenses piece by piece. "And if I'm not ready in 2 weeks?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Then we'll face the consequences together," he said. "But Elena, I believe in you. I believe your strength, your courage will guide you to the right decision, whatever that is." He pulled away then, and the cold in his absence was almost physical. "I'll let you rest," Kael said, walking toward the door. "But if you need me, for anything, I'll be here." He stopped at the threshold, looking over his shoulder. "And Elena? I don't regret it. Even if you reject me in the end, even if it destroys me, I don't regret a single moment since I first saw you." And then he was gone. Elena sank onto the bed, her heart pounding, the mark pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to decide both their fates. Chapter 6. The first week passed in a blur of discoveries. Elena spent her days exploring every corner of the Northern Territory, meeting pack members, training with Mara until her muscles screamed. And through all these experiences, Kael was a constant but not oppressive presence. He appeared for meals, offered to walk with her after dinner, sat in silence when she read near the main hall fireplace, but he never pressured, never demanded. And that, ironically, made him even more irresistible. "You're looking at him again," Sarah observed on the 5th morning, when they were at the training field. Elena immediately looked away from where Kael was supervising a group of young wolves. "I wasn't." "You were," Sarah smiled. "And he looks at you the same way. When he thinks you're not watching." Elena didn't respond, but felt the heat rise in her cheeks. That night, after another communal dinner, Kael approached her with an unusual request. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand. "There's something I want to show you." Intrigued, Elena accepted his hand. He guided her out of the hall, through the dark forest, using only the moonlight to guide them. Elena should be nervous, but her wolf was completely calm, trusting him implicitly. Finally, they arrived at a hidden clearing, and Elena gasped. The place was magical. A hot spring steamed in the center, surrounded by smooth rocks. Fireflies danced in the air, and the moonlight reflected on the water in a way that made it seem to glow. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I used to come here when I needed to think," Kael said softly, when the weight of leading became too much. "It's my secret place." Elena looked at him surprised. "And you're sharing it with me?" "I want to share everything with you," he said, his golden eyes capturing her. "Every place I love, every thought I have, every part of me." The air between them became charged. Elena felt the mark on her neck pulse, warming. "Kael, you don't need to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I just wanted you to know that there's nothing I would hide from you. No part of me that wouldn't be yours if you accepted me." He took a step closer, and Elena didn't back away. "Can I ask you a question?" she murmured. "Anything. Have you ever had another mate? Before me?" Something passed through his eyes. "No. The gods choose only one true mate for each wolf. You're my first, and will be my only." The intensity of those words made her shiver. "And if I refuse, you'd be alone forever?" "Yes," Kael said without hesitation. "Because no one else could compare. No one else would make my wolf awaken, my heart beat faster, my soul feel complete. Only you." Elena couldn't breathe. His brutal sincerity, the vulnerability he displayed so freely, it was destroying all her defenses. "I'm afraid," she admitted in a whisper. "Afraid of making the wrong decision. Afraid of hurting you. Afraid of losing myself in this." Kael raised his hand, hesitated, then touched her face when she didn't pull back. "You won't lose yourself," he promised. "Because I'll be here, every day, reminding you of who you are, how strong, how beautiful, how incredibly perfect you are. And if you choose to accept me," his voice failed, became rougher, "I'll spend every remaining day of my life making sure you never regret it." And then, with courage she didn't know she possessed, Elena rose on her toes and kissed him. Chapter 7. The kiss was different from the first. The first had been desperate hunger, an urgent burning. This was choice, deliberate, conscious, full of meaning. Kael froze for half a second as if he couldn't believe it. Then his hands pulled her closer, one tangling in her hair, the other wrapping around her waist, and he deepened the kiss with a low moan that vibrated to her bones. The mark on her neck exploded in flames, not of pain, but of something more intense. Pleasure mixed with need, connection deepening, the bond between them intensifying until Elena didn't know where she ended and he began. When they finally separated, both breathless, Kael pressed his forehead against hers. "Elena," he breathed, his voice destroyed. "What?" "I'm still not ready for the claiming," she said quickly, before she lost courage. "But I want to try. I want to know you. I want to give us, a real chance." Kael's eyes shone, with relief, with joy, with something deeper. "That's all I need," he said, kissing her again, softer this time. "That's all I ask." They stayed there for hours, sitting near the hot spring, talking. Kael told her about his childhood, about how he had become Alpha at 21 when his father died in a rogue attack, about the loneliness of leading without a mate by his side. Elena shared her own pains, about how she had grown up always feeling insufficient, about always being the second choice, about the constant pressure to be perfect without ever being allowed to be strong. "You are strong," Kael said with conviction when she finished. "The strongest woman I've ever met. Because strength isn't just muscles or power. It's having the courage to run when everything in you is screaming to stay. It's choosing freedom when it would be easier to conform." Tears ran down Elena's face, and Kael wiped them away with his thumbs, his movements infinitely gentle. "I see you," he murmured. "Every part of you. And there's nothing I would change." When they finally returned to the main hall, the first lights of dawn were tinging the sky. Kael accompanied her to her room door, and for a moment, neither wanted to separate. "Sleep well," he said finally, kissing her forehead, a gesture so tender it made Elena's heart squeeze. "Kael?" she called him when he started to walk away. "Yes? Thank you, for waiting, for giving me time." He smiled, that smile that completely transformed his face. "I would wait 1,000 years for you," he said. "What are a few weeks?" And as Elena lay down, feeling the mark pulse gently on her neck, she allowed herself for the first time to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be happy. Chapter 8. Everything changed on the morning of the 8th day. Elena woke to screaming. She jumped out of bed, her heart racing, and ran to the window. Below, in the courtyard, there was chaos. Wolves running, shouts echoing, and in the center of it all, a familiar figure that made her blood freeze. Her father. Alpha Richard was there, surrounded by at least 20 warriors, his face contorted in rage. And facing him, positioned protectively, was Kael. Elena didn't think. She ran. Down the stairs, through the corridors, bursting through the main doors just as her father raised his voice again. "You have no right to keep her here. She's my daughter, promised to Alpha Marcus. This mockery of a bond changes nothing." "It changes everything," Kael replied, his voice calm but lethal. "The law of the first kiss is sacred, older than your arrangements, older than your political games. Elena chose me, whether she knew it or not, and I will not let you take her." "She's confused, manipulated by your tricks," Richard roared. "Elena!" His eyes found her at the door, and something cruel flashed in them. "Come here, now, we're going home." Elena froze. Every instinct from 24 years of obedience screamed at her to comply. But then she felt it. The mark, pulsing. And Kael, his eyes finding hers across the courtyard, not ordering, not demanding, just waiting, trusting her to make her own choice. Elena took a deep breath and walked forward, but not toward her father, toward Kael. "I am home," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "This is my home. He is my home." Richard's face turned purple. "You ungrateful—" "Enough." Elena's voice rang out, surprising everyone, including herself. "I've spent my entire life being your perfect daughter, your bargaining chip, your pretty little doll to arrange as you pleased. But I'm done." She stood beside Kael, who immediately placed his hand on the small of her back, a gesture of support, not possession. Kael is my true mate. The law recognized what my soul already knew, and I choose him. I choose this pack. I choose freedom. For a moment, absolute silence reigned. Then Richard laughed, but it was a bitter, ugly sound. You choose freedom? You're trading one cage for another, you foolish girl. He's manipulated you, used ancient superstitions to trap you. He gave me choice, Elena shot back. Something you never did. And if this is a cage, it's one I walked into with my eyes open. Richard's eyes narrowed. Then you're no daughter of mine. The words should have hurt. Maybe they did. But standing there, with Kael's warmth beside her, with an entire pack watching her with respect rather than judgment, Elena felt lighter. Then I guess we finally agree on something, she said quietly. Richard turned to leave, his warriors following. But at the edge of the courtyard, he stopped, looking back. You'll regret this. When he tires of you, when the bond fades, you'll have nothing. No family, no home, no one. And then he was gone. Elena stood there, trembling, the weight of what she'd just done crashing over her. She'd just renounced her entire family, her entire past, everything she'd known. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind, and Kael's scent enveloped her. You're not alone, he murmured into her hair. You'll never be alone again. I promise you. And surrounded by her new pack, held by her mate, Elena finally let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from relief. Chapter 9. The days after her father's departure were both the hardest and the most liberating of Elena's life. She grieved the loss of her family, even knowing they had never truly valued her. But with every tear, Kael was there, and Sarah, and Mara, and dozens of other pack members who had become, impossibly, her family. On the 10th day, Elena woke with a new determination. 2 weeks were almost up, and she knew, with absolute certainty, what she wanted. She found Kael in his office, poring over territorial maps. He looked up when she entered, and the smile that transformed his face made her decision even easier. Elena, I'm ready, she interrupted. Kael froze. Ready for the claiming. She took a deep breath. I want you to mark me. Tonight. Under the full moon. Something fierce and possessive flashed in Kael's eyes, but also tenderness. Are you sure? There's no rush. We still have... I'm sure. Elena crossed to him, placing her hands on his chest. I've spent my whole life being uncertain, being afraid. But this? You? This is the first thing I've ever been completely sure about. Kael's hands came up to frame her face, his touch reverent. You have no idea what you mean to me. Then show me, she whispered. That night, the entire pack gathered in the sacred clearing. The full moon hung above them, enormous and silver, illuminating the circle of wolves who had come to witness the completion of the bond. Elena stood in the center, wearing a simple white dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. And across from her, Kael. He wore traditional ceremonial clothes, but it was his eyes that captured her. Golden, burning, full of love and promise and possession. The pack elder, an ancient wolf named Margaret, stepped forward. We gather tonight to witness the second ritual of the law of the first kiss, the claiming, where Alpha Kael will mark his true mate, binding them for all eternity. Elena, daughter of Richard, do you accept this bond willingly? I do, Elena said, her voice clear and strong. Kael, Alpha of the North, do you swear to honor, protect, and cherish your mate for all your days? With my life, Kael replied. Then come together, and let the bond be sealed. Kael crossed to her in 3 long strides. His hands found her waist, pulling her close. Last chance to run, he murmured, but there was a smile in his voice. Not a chance, Elena replied, and tilted her head, exposing her neck. Kael's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. He leaned down, his breath hot against her throat, and whispered, Mine, and bit down. The pain was sharp but brief, immediately replaced by overwhelming pleasure. Elena cried out, her hands clutching Kael's shoulders as power surged through the bond. She could feel everything. His love, his fierce protectiveness, his absolute devotion. And underneath it all, his wolf, howling in triumph. When Kael pulled back, his fangs retracting, Elena touched her neck. She could feel the mark now, raised slightly, pulsing with warmth. Permanent. Visible. Hers. "Look," Kael said, turning her toward a reflecting pool nearby. In the water's surface, Elena saw it. A beautiful, intricate mark on her neck, shaped like a crescent moon surrounded by stars. The symbol of the Northern Pack. The symbol of Kael. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "You're beautiful," Kael corrected, pulling her back against his chest. "My mate. My Luna. Mine." The pack erupted in howls of celebration. But Elena barely heard them. All she could focus on was Kael and the bond between them, now blazing with completion. Almost complete, a small voice reminded her. One ritual remained. But as Kael swept her into his arms, carrying her away from the celebration toward his private chambers, Elena felt no fear. Only anticipation. Only love. Only certainty. This was right. He was right. They were right. And as the door closed behind them, as Kael laid her gently on the bed and covered her body with his, as their lips met in a kiss that promised forever, Elena finally understood what it meant to be free, to be chosen, to be home. Chapter 10. Elena woke wrapped in warmth and the scent of pine and wild earth. Kael's arms were around her, his breath steady against her hair. The morning light filtered through the windows, painting everything in soft gold. She touched her neck, feeling the mark. It was tender, but the pain had faded, replaced by a constant, pleasant warmth. A reminder of the bond that now connected them completely. Well, almost completely. One ritual remained. "Good morning, my Luna." Kael's rough voice rumbled against her back. Elena turned in his arms to face him. His hair was tousled, his eyes still heavy with sleep, and he looked more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "Good morning," she whispered. They lay there for long minutes, just looking at each other, fingers tracing lazy patterns on skin. It felt surreal, this peace, this happiness. "What are you thinking?" Kael asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "That I never knew it could be like this," Elena admitted. "That I spent so long believing I didn't deserve happiness. And now I'm terrified of losing it." Kael's expression softened. He pulled her closer until there was no space between them. "You won't lose this. You won't lose me. I'm yours, Elena. For as long as you'll have me. Forever. If you'll let me." Elena kissed him, pouring every emotion she couldn't voice into the touch. When they finally separated, both breathless, Kael rested his forehead against hers. "The consummation," he said quietly. "We don't have to rush. We have time. And I want you to be absolutely—" "Tonight," Elena interrupted, her voice firm despite the flutter of nervousness in her stomach. "I want to complete the bond tonight." Kael's eyes darkened, his pupils dilating. "Elena, I'm sure," she said. "I want this. I want you. All of you." A low growl rumbled in Kael's chest, his wolf responding to her words. "Then tonight," he agreed, his voice rough. "Tonight you become mine in every way, and I become yours." The day passed in a haze of anticipation. Elena trained with Mara in the morning, her body moving through combat forms while her mind wandered. Sarah noticed immediately. "You're distracted," she observed, blocking Elena's strike easily. "Want to talk about it?" Elena hesitated, then decided honesty was easier. "Tonight, the final ritual." Understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes, followed by a warm smile. "Nervous?" "Terrified. Excited. Both." Elena lowered her practice sword. "Is that normal?" "Completely normal." Sarah squeezed her shoulder. "Elena, Kael loves you. He'll take care of you. And from what I've seen, you two are perfect together." "How do you know?" "About love, I mean." Sarah's expression turned wistful. "I had a mate once. Lost him in a rogue attack 3 years ago. But I remember that feeling. Like your soul recognized its other half. Like you were finally whole." "I'm sorry," Elena said softly. "Don't be. I had him. Even if it was brief. That's more than many wolves get. Sarah smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. And you? You have your forever starting tonight. Don't waste a moment of it on fear. That evening, Elena prepared with Sarah's help. A simple silk robe in deep blue, her hair brushed until it shone, the mark on her neck visible and proud. You're beautiful, Sarah said, stepping back to admire her work. Kael's going to lose his mind. Elena laughed nervously. That's the plan. When Sarah left, Elena sat by the window, watching the sun set. The mark on her neck pulsed steadily, and she could feel Kael through the bond now. His anticipation, his love, his barely restrained desire. A knock on the door made her jump. "Come in," she called, her voice steadier than she felt. Kael entered, and Elena's breath caught. He wore simple black pants and a loose white shirt, his hair damp as if he'd just bathed. But it was his eyes that captured her, golden and burning with intensity. "Hi," she said, feeling suddenly shy. "Hi," he replied, crossing to her. He took her hands, bringing them to his lips. "You look—" There are no words. "You're not bad yourself," Elena managed, and he smiled. "Are you sure about this?" Kael asked, his thumbs stroking her palms. "We can wait. I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm not," Elena assured him. "I'm ready. I want this. I want you." Kael's eyes flashed gold. "Then come with me." He led her to his chambers. The room had been transformed. Candles everywhere, casting dancing shadows. Rose petals scattered across the bed. The windows opened to let in the cool night air and the light of the full moon. "Kael," Elena breathed. "It's beautiful." "You deserve beautiful," he said simply. "You deserve everything." He pulled her close, his hands framing her face. "Elena, I need you to know. This isn't just about completing the bond. This is about us. About showing you how much you mean to me. How much I love you." "You love me?" Elena whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "I love you," Kael confirmed. "I have since the moment I saw you, and I'll love you until my last breath and beyond." Elena stood on her toes, kissing him with all the emotion flooding through her. "I love you too. So much it terrifies me." "Don't be terrified," Kael murmured against her lips. "Just be mine. Always," Elena promised. And as Kael lifted her into his arms, carrying her to the bed, as their bodies came together in a dance as old as time, as the bond between them blazed into completion with a force that shook them both to their cores, Elena finally understood what it meant to be whole, to be loved, to be free. The bond snapped into place with the force of a lightning strike, and Elena cried out as power surged through her. She could feel everything now. Kael's love, overwhelming and absolute, his devotion, his joy, and underneath it all, his wolf, singing in harmony with hers. "Mine," Kael growled, his fangs grazing her neck where the mark pulsed. "Mine," Elena agreed, her nails digging into his shoulders. "And you're mine. Always," Kael promised. And as the moon reached its zenith, as their wolves howled in triumph, as two souls finally became one, Elena knew she had found her home, not in a place, but in a person. In Kael, her mate, her love, her forever. Epilogue 6 months later, Elena stood on the hilltop overlooking the Northern Territory. Kael's arms wrapped around her from behind. The snow had melted, revealing green meadows and blooming wildflowers. Spring had come to the north. "What are you thinking about?" Kael asked, kissing her temple. "How different everything is now," Elena said, leaning back against him. "How different I am. You're still you. Just freer, happier," Elena corrected. "Loved. So loved," Kael agreed, spinning her to face him. "My Luna, my mate, my everything." Elena smiled, then bit her lip nervously. "Speaking of everything, there's something I need to tell you." Kael's expression sharpened with concern. "What is it? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." Elena took his hand, placing it on her still flat stomach. "We're both fine." For a moment, Kael just stared. Then understanding dawned, and his eyes went wide. We're pregnant," Elena confirmed, laughing at his shocked expression. About 6 weeks, the healer thinks. Kael let out a whoop of joy that echoed across the valley. He picked Elena up, spinning her around until she was laughing and dizzy. When he finally set her down, there were tears in his eyes. "A pup," he breathed. "We're having a pup. Are you happy?" Elena asked, though she could feel his joy through the bond. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Kael kissed her deeply. "You've given me everything, Elena. A mate. A true Luna. And now this. A family. We were always a family," Elena said, gesturing to the packlands below where wolves moved about their daily lives. "But yes, now we're expanding it." Kael dropped to his knees, pressing his forehead against her stomach. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "Your mother and I can't wait to meet you. And I promise you'll be loved. So loved. You'll never doubt your worth. Never feel like you have to be anything other than yourself. Because that's what family means here. That's what love means." Elena ran her fingers through his hair, her heart so full she thought it might burst. This was everything she'd never dared to dream of. Everything she'd never known she could have. Freedom, choice, love, home. "Come on," she said, tugging Kael to his feet. "Let's go tell the pack. Sarah's going to lose her mind." As they walked back down the hill, hand in hand, Elena looked back one last time at the view. She'd come here as a runaway bride, desperate and afraid. And she'd found herself. Found love. Found home. The best things, she reflected, often come from the bravest choices. And running toward the unknown that night, running toward Kael, had been the bravest choice of her life. Behind them, the northern sun set in brilliant colors, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. A new day was ending, but for Elena and Kael, their forever was just beginning. The end.